Z Jaipur Literature Festival. Before I introduce our panelists and our debaters or speakers for this evening, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank a few people. As you all know, much of this festival is free. Each person who comes through the doors of Diggy costs the festival something, a chair, a brochure, a folder, a glass of water, etc. And we have all our wonderful sponsors to thank for their generosity. I'd like to begin by thanking our title sponsor, Z Entertainment. Our grateful thanks to all of those who've supported us in the past and continue to support us year after year. Thank you, Google, Coca-Cola, Ford, Mahindra, the Mahindra Humanities Center, Glenlivet, Kingfisher, the Ministries of Tourism, both here in Rajasthan and incredible India, MTS, Norla, and the Norwegian Embassy, the Jan Mikuleski Foundation, and Vera Mikuleski, who's been supporting the festival ever since this has ever begun, Penguin and Fortis. It also gives us great pleasure in welcoming our new partners, and I hope they continue to grow with us year on year. Amazon, Amity University, UN Women. This year is the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Conference on Gender, and this will be celebrated at the United Nations in September with the coming together of all the heads of state to, I think, debate what's not been done in the 20 years rather than what's been done. But thank you very much for them. The Aga Khan Foundation, the IQ Magazine, the Indian Quarterly, the YPO, or Young Presidents Organization, the Rajasthan chapter has supported us enormously. We'd like to thank all our many media partners. We have 750 accredited press, and I'd really take this opportunity to thank each one of you. You take the information out that happens here in the festival. I know you look for controversies, as that tends to sell newspapers and channels much more than good news. My belief has always been that we have 440 odd speakers and performers. Each of them have a fantastic idea. That's what you need to take out. The controversies are sometimes imagined, and perhaps we need to change the way that the media looks at news. In today's day and age, if we continue to diss every aspect of the state, the judiciary, the administration, the politicians, the bureaucracy, and everything, there will be nothing left for us to believe in. There will be no institutions left, and you'll give rise to fascism because that everybody think order is the only way forward. So the media has a big role to play. Thank you all very much. A special thank you to Diggy House and all their staff, Ram Pratap and Jyotika of Diggy and Shakti and all their family, and a big hand for them, please, because all of us have been here. To Clark's Amer, where we host our opening, our evening performance every day. Thank you. To La Meridian for this evening's closing writers' ball. And finally, to thank each and every one of you. People have often asked me what makes this festival special and, congratulates us as a collective. And I keep saying, no, it's the people who come here. Each person who takes time out to be here, each person who comes here to open their minds and their hearts to new ideas, new philosophies, new thoughts. It's quite incredible. So a big hand to each of you for your time and your energy. This indeed is an incredible social experiment. All of you come together. Sometimes it gets really crowded. In spite of that, we're able to get through everything safely. To the Rajasthan police, the IB, and all the paramilitary forces, they have an incredible job to do. They have to keep us safe. Many times we don't really appreciate the kind of effort they put in, but thank every police person standing here. आप सबको जो राजस्थान के पुलिस है, आप सबको बहुत धन्यवाद हम सब के तरफ से कि आप हमारे साथ इस फेस्टिवल को सुरक्षित रखे हो. Thank you very much. And is there anybody I've missed? Yes, the authors. We take the authors for granted. They travel across the world, and we forget that they take time out from their lives and their schedules and their writings to fly in from all corners, everywhere from Hawaii to New Zealand, everywhere from Russia through to South Africa. We've had a wonderful 450 odd speakers and performers. To each one of them, please give them a very big hand. And now for the debate. I'm going to first tell you the format and then welcome on our guests. The format's quite simple. I'm going to poll the audience, and I think the poll is going to be available online as well. You can SMS your view, but I'll do a hand poll as well. These are the views for yes and no, so we're going to keep this going for a bit. So just hold that slide, and I will poll it at the end. Once the poll is done, I will introduce our speakers for today, after which, or rather the other way. I'll first introduce the speakers, then I'll poll you, and then we will give each of the speakers 5 minutes each for their opening statements, after which we'll have a little bit of question answers between ourselves, and then I'll open it out to the public. I would love us to get questions from halfway behind. I know we're never able to get back. So may I please ask one of the mics at least to position themselves halfway at the back so we can get some questions at the back as well. Maybe what we'll do is we'll take 2 or 3 questions at a time. Please remember, we'd love questions to be short so that we can answer them and debate them. Restrict it to questions rather than comments at this point of time. After that, I'll go back to our speakers and ask them all for closing statements. And then I will poll you all to see whether you've changed your point of view, whether you agree with the premise of the debate or not. So ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The debate for today, the premise is culture the new politics of today? That's the premise. Is culture the new politics? Speaking today, may I welcome in no particular order, Suhel Seth, Managing Partner of Counsel Edge India. Counsel Edge is India's only strategic brand and marketing advisory, which chairpersons and CEOs, its clients include Mahindra and Mahindra, Coca-Cola, DLF, Vodafone, Max, Hero, GMR, etc. Suhel is known as a theatre person and a film actor. He's also a passionate debater. That's actually his primary passion. He began with debating. He's written a number of books, including Get to the Top, which was a national bestseller. And his next one out is in February 2015. Why didn't you have it ready for the festival?
Blame the publishers.
Blame the publishers. Somebody else's fault. The next book is Mantras for Success from India's Greatest CEOs. Suhel is also deeply involved with philanthropy and is chairman of the ELA Trust and on board of the Max Foundation. Suhel Seth, advisor to the Jaipur Literature Festival. Rajiv Malhotra has flown in from America. He's from Princeton, USA. He's a researcher there on civilizations, cross-cultural encounters, and science. He retired from corporate and entrepreneurial careers to pursue philanthropy, research, and public service, and established Infinity Foundation. His 3 provocative books include Being Different, Breaking India, and Indra's Net. He was the chief protagonist in Invading the Sacred. Ladies and gentlemen, Rajiv Malhotra. We next have Arshia Sattar. Arshia's translation of the Valmiki Ramayana and tales from the Katha Sarit Sagara are published by Penguin Books, as is a collection of essays on the Ramayana, Lost Loves, exploring Rama's anguish, which was shortlisted for the Crossword Nonfiction Award in 2012. She's also written 3 books for children, most recently Adventures with Hanuman, her latest book, The Mouse Merchant, Tales of Money in Ancientis, a compilation of stories from Sanskrit texts about attitude to money. Arshia teaches classical Indian literature at various institutions across the country. Arshia Sattar. We also have Shazia Ilmi, a broadcaster, debater, formerly a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, recently joined the BJP, a great activist, a socialist in every sense of the word, and a feminist. Arshia. So I'm going to begin by first polling all of you. In recent times, especially in today's particularly bipolar world, where either you're with someone or against someone, we have seen that culture again and again comes up as the first thing or the softest target for everybody from both sides of the political divide to have a go at. They burn books, they ban artists. In more recent times, you've even started looking at subverting religious festivals, including Christmas. And it's a big issue when we look at the kind of changes that are being instrumented in both the classical texts and textbooks and more. On the other side of the debate is the issue that culture continues to evolve. If we didn't have an evolving culture and tradition, we would still have perhaps sati burning, dowry deaths, and worse. Do we need to have a debate? Do we need to look at culture through a new light? Does culture continue to be the first frontier for people to attack? Much of this is at stake today. Many apologies as the dust. So to begin with, if we can get the slide up on again, I'm going to ask the audience, is culture the new politics? Those of you who believe that it is the new politics, raise your hand. And you may also text. For those of you who believe that culture is not the new politics, please raise your hand. So as of now, we believe, the House believes, that culture is the new politics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the debate. You use the podium. For those of you speaking for the motion, is culture the new politics? You will use that. Those of you who are speaking against the motion, use this. So you're going to be using that. Each of you wonderful. Everybody believes in it. Arshia, begin.
Hi.
It's 5 minutes. The drums will resound at 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm not going to need 5 minutes, so I will not be drummed out of here. I think culture is not the new politics. I think culture is the old politics. Any government or any state that feels insecure, that feels threatened, the first thing they go for is culture. And the reason, to my mind, the reason for that is quite simple. Culture comes from the people. Governments don't create it, states don't create it. It's you and me that create cultures. So if you want to control the people and you want to brainwash people and you want them to think alike rather than differently, that's what you go for. It's culture that disseminates ideas. It's the arts that make us think differently. Look at what we've been exposed to in the last 5 days. I'm sure every single person here has encountered at least one new idea, if not more than one. Yeah, and it's forces of control, forces that prefer control as well as forces that control, who don't want us to think independently, who want us all to think alike. They certainly don't want us to challenge. They certainly don't want us to subvert. Colonial governments, if you think about a colonial government, what does it do first? It starts to censor. It censors the arts, yeah? So the attack on culture is a very, very old politics indeed. Now, whether culture itself is politics, is it the new politics? I'm not so sure, because I still believe that culture is what makes us better, and I think politics is really what makes us worse. So I'll stop there for the moment.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening to everybody. Adab, namaskar. Is culture the new politics? I think culture pretty much is the new politics and the old politics. Culture, in fact, is the bedrock of politics, especially for a young republic like ours, which has an ancient civilization with great assimilation, peaks of refinement, and also lack of it. But culture is not a monolith. We all in India, which is a land of multitudes, have multiple identities. When we talk about culture being a new kind of politics, we're talking about a new cultural identity in the arena of politics. So when you look at ourselves, I think any conversation on this subject would be incomplete without mentioning the psychological subjugation of our country as a colonized nation, which is why we're having this debate in English. And I think that is a point that is to be made. And this as when we had to make a choice, when we became a nation, the entire spectrum of opinion, right, left, centrist, the tribal point of view, the Muslim point of view, the Dalit point of view, the identity, and what would be Indian, all that was debated in the Constituent Assembly debates. We jostled together to create a nation, to have a constitution. Having said that, we have seen politics often dabbling with different cultural identities. Nehru, who gave us a lot, the first Prime Minister of this country, understood India with a certain prism of Western idea of modernity, of continuity. So his whole idea of looking at India and what is Indian was seen through a certain prism. We're watching a counter point of view. And I'm sure there are excesses and extreme positions. And I do not speak for those extreme positions. But I wonder as an Indian citizen, and I have many identities which I will talk about, as to why I know such little about Kalidas and practically nothing of Ghalib, but I know so much about Shakespeare. It is something to be thought about, that the whole idea of what is modern, and English has a preponderance and has a disproportionate influence on the intelligentsia and the mobilizing power in this country, so to speak. Which is why the whole idea of Panchayati Raj, it is so inimical to India, whereas when you talk about municipal corporation and counties, we don't understand it. Which is why it is really something to wonder about, that Westerners take so much interest in Sanskrit, much more than we do. So when there is a counterpoint which counters the idea of India, as we've seen by UPA and Congress government having promoted a certain idea of what is secularism and what is India, and there is a counterpoint, it would be a difficult battle, so to speak, and a new terrain altogether. But the relevance of debate, the relevance of the conversation stays. So I will not speak at all for the excessive and extremist positions, but everybody may ask this question of me as to why I've joined the BJP. Now, when they see me, they see a woman, a Muslim, wearing saffron and supporting a party that is considered saffron. And you know something? I think I'm an Indian. I have many, many identities. I would like to quote Amartya Sen, who actually described himself that I can, at any point of time, can be an Asian, a British citizen, a Bengali with Bangladeshi ancestry, an American resident, an economist, a dabbler in philosophy, an author, Sanskritist, a man, a feminist from a Hindu background. I would describe myself as an Asian, Indian, Muslim, from UP, studied in Himachal and Nainital, traveled all over, defender of people, a humanist, a journalist, and a writer. And after hearing Mr. Murthy, a confused leftist and now a passionate capitalist. So we wear different identities and different point of times, and none have to jostle with each other. Yes, culture is the new politics and always has been. Thank you.
Suhel said, can we ask the cafe to put the music off, please? Can somebody just tell the cafe? Can we tell the cafe to put the music off, please? Thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Sanjoy, my fellow panelists. My free advice to Shazia Ilmi is, now that you're in the BJP, don't quote Amartya Sen. I don't want to pussyfoot on this topic, so I'll come straight to the point. Earlier we had political ideologies, then we had political ideologues, now we have political idiots who are dabbling with the fabric of India, with the fabric of secular India. Instead of talking about issues that should inspire us, we are talking about issues that divide us. Instead of using literature as the fountainhead for hope and affection, we use literature as a political tool to score political brownie points. What can be more shameful for an ancient civilization than this? It is not my point to talk about the RSS, the BJP, the Congress. I've always used one phrase on television, and I will repeat here, is hammam mein sab nange hain. It is when they choose to take the kind of pot shots that they do that you really feel sad. You cannot wish away 180 million Muslims, just like the Muslims can't wish away the majoritarianism of Hindus. So we've got to take the political discourse to a different level. You know, I heard Rajiv's talk where he talks about a caller who called him in Dallas, and he says, you know, I'm talking about mutual respect. And that Muslim lady said, yes, but he says, no, but first let me tell you about my faith. That let Rajiv explain. Point I'm making is, everything that can be politicized in this country has been politicized. You cannot allow the arts. You turned M.F. Hussain into a fugitive, one of India's finest artists. If you have an objection with his art, then have a counterpoint to that art. But don't make him an exile and make him die in London. What Dinanath Batra, whatever his name is, did with the book and the shameless manner in which Penguin almost crumbled under the weight of political threat is equally saddening. My belief is we've all been privileged. The fact that we're here at the Jaipur Literature Festival is symbolic of the fact that we're here because we are privileged to have an education which didn't divide us, an education which I'm an atheist, but if you were a Hindu, you still sang the Lord's Prayer. You celebrated religion privately. You didn't inject religion into your literary beliefs. You didn't score brownie points by creating false cases against people. And I will tell you, this harm will be deep, it'll be grievous, and it will make future generations of this country suffer. Narendra Modi will be well advised to publicly condemn the stupid statements that some of his colleagues keep making from time to time. It is not my place to advise the RSS because I haven't met anyone from the RSS yet, but I can probably convey the sentiments through Shazia, since she'll be working very closely with the Sangh. My point is that it does great work as an organization. When it does great social work, why does any organization in India adopt a political, religious nexus overtone? And if you want to do it for votes, do it for votes. Don't interrupt education. Don't interfere with the discourse of civility, of liberal thinking. Every government that comes to power rewrites our history books. What are our children going to grow up as? We start owning political icons. We start owning national leaders. We start owning their thinking. Nothing can be worse. I will say this today, that Nehru was a great prime minister, and it doesn't diminish Sardar Patel's greatness. So I'm saying, when you're talking about culture, I was born and raised in Calcutta. We celebrated culture there. Now we are celebrating a different kind of culture. It's called chit scam culture. But that's a tragedy. So I would appeal to everyone here, and through you to all our fellow citizens, that we actually live in a very, very fine country. There have been millions of attempts to derail our civility, our liberal thinking, but I believe that you can't survive this way, and something must give. And the point is, if we do it quickly, if we do it with alacrity, we will be safe as a nation, but more importantly, we will endure the ethos of our civilization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to my fellow panelists and to all of you, wonderful large crowd here. I'm delighted to be here and give you some of my views on this proposition. I think it would be foolish to say that culture is not part of politics because we are, after all, a cultured people. Nobody would want to stand here and say we are uncultured and therefore there is no such thing as culture in civic society. The question is what kind of culture? It is not culture versus no culture. It is one kind of culture versus another kind of culture. So my proposition, and I didn't frame this proposition, but what I would say is what we need is a debate or a discussion on what is to be our national grand narrative. A national grand narrative which is inclusive, which is fluid, which changes with times, which is an open architecture. I use the term open architecture in my latest book to define what I consider to be an ideal cultural framework. And it has to be something based on mutual respect. Difference with mutual respect. If you don't have difference, it's wishful thinking because you do have difference. People are different. It's the nature of society. It's the nature of the universe. Different flowers, different trees, different weathers, all of that. Diversity is part of the fabric of existence. So difference has to be there. The question is, can we have difference with mutual respect? Mutual respect means I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm rooted in who I am, but I respect you for who you are. You're different, but I respect you for who you are. And I want the same for myself. The word mutual is very important. It's not unilateral. It's not that I respect you no matter what, you must respect me. So therefore, my respect would not apply to somebody who doesn't reciprocate. So if it's an extremist group, then I don't owe them respect because they're not respecting other people. I only offer this mutual respect on the condition that it has to be mutual. So if you have a culture of mutual respect and an open architecture which changes, which allows new people to come, new ideas to come, but they have to be good citizens on the principle of mutual respect. Otherwise, they're a virus. And like any open internet or any kind of system, diversity is welcome, but if somebody is trying to bring others down, then that's a virus that you get rid of. So if you have a culture on the premise of being an open architecture and fluid, evolving, porous, adaptive, contextual, then of course that is the bedrock of a healthy society, and why shouldn't that be reflected in the political system as well? The problem is that the political system is opportunistic for vote bank politics and short-sighted success, opportunism. And so because the political system is based on a parliamentary system, it's inherently fragmented, and therefore success is based on convincing a small group of people or a large group of people on some kind of identity politics that you are being victimized, something wrong, other Indians are against you and I'll save you. And so this divisiveness of politics is a result of identity politics. And therefore, the culture gets used or misused as a device for political expediency. It is not the fault of the culture. It is not a fault of the religions. It is not a fault of the diversity. It is a fault of the way these things are utilized for the expediency of political people who want to fabricate the history, who want to commission the media, who want to commission and sponsor intellectuals. Intellectuals and media, unfortunately, have become agents of this kind of a divisive politics. So culture, if culture comes first, and culture is based on mutual respect and an open architecture, then the political people are not the ones who are going to control this culture and manipulate it and use it for their own means, and then you have a happy society and a healthy society, and the political system should patronize festivals, which is culture, and patronize the enrichment of all of us, rather than controlling, dividing, and trying to use it for their own purposes. Thank you.
Before we open it up, I'm going to just ask the panelists a couple of questions, and then we will open up to the audience and come back again. So the first thing, across millennia, India has been a nation of philosophy that has assimilated cultures, whether it was Christianity 2,000 years ago, the Islamic culture 1,000 years ago, assimilated, made it its own, and continued to evolve. Has culture, or has a lunatic fringe on both sides of the political divide hijacked this middle path that India has known for millennia for their own particular purposes, or you feel that that's an evolution of the system?
You know, I mentioned that in my opening remarks. I have no issue with lunatics. I mean, we are blessed that they exist so that we can be defined as sane. So you will always have the lunatic fringe, and the lunatic fringe will always have a voice which will be carried by certain sections of the media to sensationalizations. So take that aside. When you actually begin using cultural identity in the manner you see it and inject it into education curricula, make it a symbol of intolerance, eject artists, create a rule of law which is threatening to a creative, unfettered mind, that's where the problem is. Because if in this country, you cannot have a situation where you will not allow people to have a contrarian view. You may disagree with the view, but you don't necessarily have to be disagreeable. The tragedy in India is we have now become intolerant and disagreeable. We want to beat the hell out of someone because we believe that something threatens our religion, our belief system, our culture. Half the guys who objected to Rushdie's book haven't read the satanic verses. Half the guys who objected to Hussein's art haven't read the epics. And I want to ask a simple question, or place a simple question. Is religion, is culture, which has been evolving over centuries, so fragile that it takes one innocuous, stupid comment to threaten it? No. But when you alter the course of history, when you rewrite history books, when you enforce people who are, intellectually innocent, which is a polite way for calling them idiots, but the intellectually innocent, and you plant them in positions where they will influence the kind of culture you want displayed, that's the problem.
Anybody else?
After you. Oh, I have my mic.
Okay. I would disagree with this idea of hijacked, yeah? Because I don't think we've been taken over by the lunatic fringe. I think the mainstream is people like you and me. We're still liberal and we're still tolerant, even if we're not secular. Even if we hold our religious beliefs close to ourselves. You can be a believing Hindu, a believing Muslim, a practicing Muslim, and still be liberal and tolerant. So I don't think we've been hijacked, but what I find very distressing and ultimately very frightening is it's political parties that support the lunatic fringe, right? So the fringe actually seems bigger and stronger than it is because, like, for example, our Prime Minister will not forget silence. Silence is a very bad word. Silence is the one thing that we dread more than anything. But he doesn't reprimand his colleagues who speak angrily and with extreme violence against minorities and, other marginalized people. So I'm not ready to give up hope at this moment about a fringe hijacking us. I just think we need to be more wary of the people that would like to tell us how to think, which is the political parties themselves, Ms. Ilmi, for example.
Yes, just a few rebuttals to what Mr. Suhel said. I would not be advised by anybody to quote or not to quote an author of my choice, because I'm an Indian and I believe in free speech. I will quote Amartya Sen just as much as Narendra Modi would quote Mahatma Gandhi. And I would like also to remind Mr. Suhel that most of his tweets have been pro-Modi, and the way he quotes of his friendship with a certain BJP leader who he's gone out to campaign for has to be taken into account. So it's not about just good debates, it's about conduct and believing and practicing what you preach. Two, and a larger point, I think this whole thing of, what happened with PK or with Leela Sampson's case, or the fringe element taking over and coming back to the larger debate. If you see what happened with Salman Rushdie here in this debate itself, and what happened with Taslima Nasreen is really symptomatic of what's going on of this malaise. So whether it's BJP or it's Congress or it's the good old communist government, they all, when they are in power, behave a certain way. Because of it being a multi-party system and it being democracy, the extreme element is difficult to contain because they seem to denote a certain vote bank politics, which is why it's difficult for Mulayam Singh Yadav to take on an Azam Khan, which is why it's difficult for Sonia Gandhi to tell the likes of Shah Imam Bukhari to back off, which is why maybe it's difficult to contain the fringe elements in every other party. So let's see politics for what it is. Be realistic and make our choices thereafter.
You wanted to rebut.
You know, I don't want to comment on the logicality of her statement, so I'll just make it brief. A pro-Modi tweet doesn't mean that you stop criticizing the man for what he's doing wrong, and I don't belong to the party.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not enslaved to the BJP or the Congress.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't even at that time enslaved to the Aam Aadmi Party, which now is resting on very fragile shoulders. Having said that, again, Shazia missed the point. And they keep missing the point, so I will reiterate the point. The point is not about the existence or the non-existence of fringe elements. It's when you inject that fringe into mainstream policy making, where they decide that...
Of course.
Let me finish. I can...
Absolutely.
No, may I finish? Thank you. It's when that
You're welcome.
fringe element behaves and injects itself into policy making in mainstream politics on culture, that's when you need to worry. So I have no issue with fringe elements. I began my rebuttal by saying, you know, we have lunatics all around us. I mean, not here, but you know what I mean.
Rajiv, did you want to say something?
Sure. See, I think that as long as the politics is vote bank and identity politics, you're going to have these problems. You cannot sort of wish people differently. You cannot say we wish there were no such people. There will be people, but the parliamentary system, a debate needs to be carried out whether the parliamentary system for such a huge country, for such a diverse country, is in fact a viable system, because this parliamentary democracy borrowed from England is borrowed from a country where England is a very small country and not so diverse and not so fragmented. And when you apply this kind of a bottom-up consensus building, there is the nice thing about it that you are including everybody's voice, but then there is the thing about it that you are fragmented, you have a wobbly configuration, equilibrium is very wobbly, and so to stay in power you have to cater to this guy, you have to cater to that guy, and they're going to demand their pound of flesh, and so therefore you are going to cater to the fringe element in order to keep yourself in power. The fringe element gets its power because you cannot otherwise build enough of a consensus to be in power.
Yes,
so
exactly.
we need to think about a different kind of a debate which says whether the parliamentary system itself is a viable system for this country.
Suhel, our panel, has intolerance become the new culture? And in a sense, is that what's going to define us? Because today, in terms of debate, do we have considered debate at all? I mean, much of what happens in debate is based on very little information, very little fact. And it's either Wikipedia or some of the media. I mean, has intolerance become...
You know, I think it's an excellent question. Citizens are of three kinds. You're either engaged, you're indifferent, or you're enraged. From 1937 to 1947, we had an engaged citizenry with the idea of freedom. From 47 to 71, we were largely indifferent. 71, the Bangladesh war galvanized an entire country. 75 to 77, emergency got us enraged. When Narasimha Rao, followed by Vajpayee ji, followed by Manmohan Singh, we've been hovering, we've been like oscillating between indifference and anger. Certainly the last 4 years were ones of anger. The brand of intolerance has now become pretty vicious. Political discourse does not have ideological facts to support it. And you can see that around. You see that in parliamentary debates. I mean, today you have more criminals in parliament than in Tihar jail.
True.
I mean, how ironic is that? A, B, the point that I made, again, what happened with Sadhvi's remarks which derailed parliament, which forced the government to go through ordinances. Now, these things are going to continue to happen. We have become an angry society. We have used the justice system. We've manipulated the justice system. We have many judges who don't have the intellect to perhaps understand that there are some cases being filed for publicity and some which require genuine justice. So if you look at the brand of intolerance, that's what worries me. And finally, I'm deeply concerned about what we are doing with education. When we grew up on Shakespeare. We also grew up on Premchand. We grew up on Harivansh Rai Bachchan. We grew up on Nirala. We grew up on Tagore, not Sharmila, but Rabindranath. We also grew up on Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. We read authors with delight. We discussed and debated with respect. You know, Rajiv talks about mutual respect. I will only correct you, sir, if I may, slightly. You don't respect a person because you expect the person to respect you. You respect a person regardless. We were taught in Calcutta to respect our elders. Then we don't have to wait. Now, when will the elder again reciprocate?
Let me come back to you.
No, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the respect that you rightly spoke of has gone out of the window. We have taken contrarian stance. We have, as she rightly said and Rajivji said, the fringe element which is taking over civil space, civil society, and the media. I mean, you know, I will not use this forum, but there is a particular politician, wife died, blah, blah, blah. But the television anchors have already pronounced the person guilty. I mean, I find this bizarre. You cannot run a country through television studios. That's why you need people like Shazia to get out of studios and run the country.
Rajiv, you wanted to...
Now we are back to being friends.
Okay.
Rajiv, you wanted to...
Yes. I think it's important to understand the problem with unconditional respect. You would have to respect Hitler. You would have to respect Bin Laden. So you need to have experience, my position of mutual respect is the result of years and years of debating, discussing, answering this and answering that. And I too started out with saying I respect the world until some people said, well, in that case, are you respecting the terrorist and are you respecting the guys who you consider the fringe element? So I have to demand of them something which is a qualifier, a minimum qualifier is there respect for other people.
Completely agree.
Okay.
And you're right about Hitler because he's dead, so he can't respect you back, even if you did respect him.
That is correct. But
Arshia, you wanted to
No,
speak
I,
about intolerance being...
So is Bin Laden.
well, I don't, again, I mean, it's not intolerance.
Can you all hear her?
No, okay. It's not intolerance that bothers me so much, but it's this sort of, I'm so quick to be offended, you know, which I think you can be tolerant and still be offended, you can be intolerant and still be offended. I don't know where this right to being offended is coming from and why we're taking it so seriously.
Can I just add to say that, you know, normally every year we get a number of FIRs and police cases filed against us. People who take offense against gatherings like this. So this year we've got 2.
Yay, congratulations. It's a successful festival.
That means it's Achhe Din for you. It's declining.
Yeah. Well, it also means the festival is now a complete success because if you hadn't offended anybody, Sanjoy, I think many of us would choose not to be here. It's because you give us the freedom to say what we want to say, whoever we are, whether or not we agree with your politics. But anyway, enough about you. I think if we are going to be true to ourselves in any way, and I think we must be true to ourselves if we're going to be good human beings, then we're probably going to end up offending somebody, and that's just fine. The problem is when those offended people come at you with guns and bombs and, you know, and sort of meet what is essentially a non-violent way of expressing one's views with violent ways of shutting them down. So that to me is of far greater, it makes me more uncomfortable than the idea of intolerance itself. Because nobody will admit to being an intolerant person. I am very tolerant, yeah, look at me, I'm talking to you. But people are very quick to say, I am offended, right? So that's, I think, where the nub lies of this. Anyway.
Shazia?
You know, the problem with this, the kind of political discourse...
Can you hear her?
Can you hear me? The kind of political discourse, जिस तरह से हम लोग political हमारी जो dialogue इस वक्त है, वो उसी तरीके से है जैसे जॉर्ज बुश ने कहा था, either you're with us or you're with them. So you know, it's like that. If you're like for me, somebody just said today, oh bad girl, you've joined the BJP. I said, would I have been a good girl had I joined the Congress? So there's a presumption and a perpetuation of stereotype that is there with every member of every community. So if you're a Muslim and you're a woman, you must speak only about Muslims and women. Why can I not talk about Dalits? Why can I not talk about Jats? Why should I speak only about minority rights? Why should somebody from Northeast be considered a representative of only Nagaland or Mizoram and not the rest of India? So there is this characterization that is done not just by the political establishment, but by media and by you and me. So it's also our responsibility as to how we view each other in the community. And it's very difficult because you always put in a box constantly. So if you're a Muslim, you cannot, you must join the Congress or Samajwadi Party or MIM, but not the BJP. Because that is the biggest travesty. And I think that's really unfair
very good point.
and bias against, you know, my basic choices.
Rajiv,
Yeah.
hasn't art always been reflective of politics? I mean,
Yes.
if you look back millennia, whether it's the Ramayana or the Mahabharata,
Yes.
whether it's Picasso and his painting of Guernica,
Yes.
Whether it's protest theatre, whether it's Shakespeare,
Yes.
art has always been in the forefront of politics,
Correct.
reflecting everything, including in India.
Yes.
Safdar Hashmi, for
Yes,
example.
and I would say the right to disagree is a very fundamental right of freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And when you disagree, including disagreeing with texts, religious ideologies, it's a fundamental right. Now, if I disagree with a religious ideology and it pisses off some people, then that's fine, that's their prerogative. So I, in a sense, have the right to piss off people. That is part of my freedom of thought. And they have, if the interaction goes down to a level where it's personal, it's not about ideas, it's not difference about ideas, but personality and violence and things of that sort, that becomes a problem. But if it's at a certain stature, certain level of disagreement of ideologies, I think if people are upset, then that's their problem. We have to mature the public that they should not get incited because somebody disagreed with their ideology. That, I think, is a maturation process of society, rather than clamping down on people and saying don't say this because it will offend somebody, because then you're going to keep them immature. You have to make people rise to a level where they can handle disagreement, they can handle being told certain things.
But you see, Sanjoy, very quickly, the problem, as he rightly identifies, is perhaps of intolerance of a certain brand. The issue is, you cannot live by the pen and die by the sword. You cannot be killed for what you believe. You cannot be killed for what you paint. You cannot be you can't be externed for the art that you believe in. Then we might as well change the Constitution of India and remove the fact that we are a free society, that we are a free civilization, and that we by nature are accepting of, multipolarity, if one can use that phrase.
Just a small point. I think art can really be the savior, so to speak, for any kind of cultural intolerance, Sanjoy. If you know about Vande Mataram, how offensive it could be to a certain community, to Muslims particularly. But A.R. Rahman, by saying Ma Tujhe Salam, just changed it and made it a beautiful, meaningful song, meaning the same thing, which is hailing the motherland and which became acceptable to all. So art really is the savior. The liberal space really is the place to go to offset and drive away the lunatic fringes that we were talking about.
And I will just, for God's sake, we as a country have been invaded, we've been colonized, we've embraced various aspects of culture, including food. I mean, thank God the Mughals came into our country, and that's why we have Kareems.
And Taj Mahal.
Thank God the British came, which is why we have the Indian Railways. So, you've got to be accepting of the fact that every invasion, given the nature of the country that we are, we've only absorbed and we've never confronted.
So since India is a land of invasions, now are you looking for an American invasion or a Chinese invasion?
That's happening, I believe. No, but you would know it's happening in Delhi on all the news channels.
Let me tell you, this is a very serious problem with the way Indian history has been taught to a lot of people, that Indian civilization is basically upgraded every time an invader comes. This is the invasion theory of India. Wait, let me tell you, the Aryans came and brought us Sanskrit and Vedas. Then the Greeks came and brought us philosophy. We didn't have any of that, and mathematics and so on. And then some other guys came, Mughals came and gave us chicken tikka and sitar.
Not chicken tikka.
Whatever they gave us that stuff. They gave us tandoori they gave us. And then the British came and gave us cricket.
No, they didn't even give you tandoori. We can have a food discussion separately. You make a philosophical point first.
Yes, the British gave us cricket and science and rational thinking because we were stupid before that. And now the Americans will give us human rights. This is the theory of invasion.
That you'll have to ask the Prime Minister. Obama's his guess, not mine. But no. This is the most pernicious defensive argument, and let me explain. I did not use the word upgrade. I said we have the civility to absorb the best of what cultures
But you
offer.
glorify
Hear
it.
me out, hear me out,
Yeah.
hear me out. I didn't glorify. I know reasonably well what the language should be. So, I don't need words from you to buttress my speech. Having said that, I think we have been a gracious civilization. It doesn't diminish our own achievements. It only embellishes them. All societies evolve. I mean, the Irish brought a lot in various forms to America, the country of your inhabitants presently. I'm not for a moment suggesting that India gets weakened if we talk about our past. I think India gets stronger if we talk about the past that we had.
But the implication is that if invasion 1 through n have strengthened us, then the next n1, n+1 and n+2 would be a good thing for us, and therefore we should now choose who is the next invader.
I'm not Nostradamus.
Suhel, let me ask you to hold that. Arshia, going back to a statement that you made about, that we are still liberals, etc. Has the liberal voice been marginalized, especially when it comes to art, or do you think that the liberals still stand for something? Hasn't the basic debate been again taken over by the loud elements on both sides of the political divide? It could be 30 people who are protesting something, 40 people on Twitter which enforce that a whole person can be, an author can be withdrawn from a debate. Has the liberal voice been marginalized?
I don't know if it's been marginalized. I think it's being shouted down. But I think Arundhati Subramaniam, when she received her award last night, said something very beautiful about whispers and murmurs.
Pick up your mic.
Sorry, about whispers and murmurs. And I think that, sometimes a whisper is actually stronger than a shout, because the louder people shout, the more idiotic they sound, actually. They trip over themselves, they look really funny with their mouths wide open, shouting. So I don't think we've been marginalized, but I do think we need to keep the whispers and the murmurs going, because what we're facing otherwise is incredibly dangerous. I want to say this one thing also that's making me very uncomfortable in the undercurrent of our conversation. It's this idea that, Mr. Malhotra, that, maybe parliamentary democracy is not good enough for us. You speak of us as a young republic. We're 67 years old. That's older than me. That's not young. Maturation of peoples and ideas. What are you seriously suggesting that we should give up democracy and that we should go into
I
some
didn't say
kind
democracy.
okay,
I said parliamentary
system?
United States has a presidential democracy.
Right.
Therefore, whoever gets the maximum number of votes forms the government,
see,
and you
I
do
see.
not have to depend on
Okay.
Parliament supporting you. So you do not have a bunch of criminals who should be in the hard jail running elections so that they can support you.
That's true.
So,
I mean,
if you had one person, one vote, and all of us, anyone could stand for elections, and if that person gets the maximum number of votes, that person forms the government, and they are stable for 5 years. There is no confidence motion concept unless they do a criminal offense.
Right.
So that's a different system. It is not non-democratic.
Okay.
It's just a different way to have a
This is
democracy.
very good. Now, I'm glad you clarified that. And also we know, when Bush
Like
II
Egypt.
was in power, how many non-criminals there were in his cabinet. So the idea of presidential system does not keep criminals out of power. In fact, it just brings a different kind of criminal to power. Anyway, we're not talking about democracy, but I just back to Sanjoy, your question about liberal voices and how important it is that they continue to whisper, if not.
Suhel, Shazia, did you want?
No, just a last one point. I mean, I'm a strong defender of democracy, and most of us are, and of freedom of expression. But we have seen in this country democracy being used against freedom of expression when it comes to vote bank politics. And
has the liberal voice been marginalized? Do
yes,
you feel that?
But I feel the liberal voice is also asserting itself. And the fringe elements are being shown a mirror. So I think it's time for a campaign of this kind, for more and more people to speak out and shut down these voices. So that time is here.
Truth be told, the age of intolerance or the liberal voice being shut down is not new. It's also become fashionable to attribute it to Modi in the context of right-wing fundamentalism or whatever. The Congress did the same. The communists did the same. Indira Gandhi banned my play Bhutto. I mean, not my play, I was acting in it, but she banned it.
Every political party in power.
Which is why I said, is hamaam mein sab nange hain aur nange rahe hain bade saalon se. The reality is today the media is, is more vigorous. There is greater probity. There's more freedom of expression on platforms within social media. The voice is being heard, but as Arshia said, there is a counter voice which is far greater, attempting to drown this voice. So I have no hopes in the political system. I mean, don't get me wrong. What I meant was in the politicians. I have great hope in the young India that is now taking on the mantle and that will hopefully talk about an India and not about divisiveness, hatred and intolerance.
So on that note, let me open it up to young India, as most of our audiences are young India. Yes, I'm going to start from the front and then move to the back. So the two girls, like I said, I'm going to take questions in clusters 1, 2, 3, and then we'll come back. And then I'll go to the back.
Not lights on us, lights on you.
Good evening. My question is open to the floor. Anybody who would like to answer? I am a 12th stand political science student. And when I heard about secularism and every political party and any political person having their own definitions of secularism, I studied about the Indian method of secularism, which talks about reasonable restrictions in our multicultural and our diverse society. So when we talk about secularism, it is the same reasonable restriction on secularism that abolished sati even when the majority supported it. And today it is the same reasonable restriction that allows for unreasonable bans to be put. So can we actually do away with policy making, cultural policy making, and live in a peaceful, multicultural society?
So hold that. The next person who put up, there was another lady who put up her hand just behind. I'll come back to you. And there was one on the other side as well. Yeah, the guy in the blue.
My question is to Suhel, sir. Sir, your main emphasis was on objective education and history.
Just get your mic closer because we can't hear you.
My question is to Suhel, sir. Sir, your main emphasis was on objective education and history particularly. But
I can't hear you. Just speak into the microphone. It might help.
Sir, my question is to you. Sir, your main emphasis was on objective education and history. But we have different political philosophies in India, and they do influence education. So how can we have objective history written?
Very good.
Okay,
Very good.
objective history and the gentleman in the blue. Yeah.
How can we have objective history when there are so many philosophies?
Hello. One sec, Suhel, just hold that. One more question.
To all of you. I want to draw the attention of the panelists to the...
Just stand, please.
Good evening to all of you. I just want to draw the attention of the panelists. We keep talking about the right to offend. But why shouldn't we talk about the right to be offended? So when Charlie Hebdo draws this cartoon about someone, then there is a mental violence going on. We accept mental violence, but we discourage the physical violence. So why should it be like this? I mean, mental violence is acceptable to us, but physical violence is not. They are getting offended. The people, in this context.
Great, we got the question. Mental violence and physical violence. So would the panelists like to take up those three issues?
Yeah, you take on. I'll take on.
Start with the history, perhaps.
You go first. I'll come.
No, the young girl talked about secularism. Beta, the question should be addressed to Sonia Gandhi because they kept talking about secularism. When we were growing up in school in our times, we never discussed secularism because religion was private. We celebrated everyone's belief system. I mean, in that context, and I'd request Rajiv to take that, the question to aapne pooch, the one you asked. How can you have?
How can history be objective?
No, but
history is never objective. History is recorded, and it is through the chronicler's eyes that you see history. You know, people could have, there was a lovely session in the Jaipur Literature Festival this time on the interpretation of the Mahabharata with Vivek and Amish. So the interpretations can be different. I'm saying don't inject or alter history to suit, as he also said, political expediency. The point is when you use books to replace the ballot paper, you will always have a problem.
But I think the problem is more complex, and she's raised a very interesting point. History has been used to encourage vote bank politics because you go to a community and say, historically, other Indians have abused you, exploited you, and I'm the one who's going to save you. So then that boosts my status with these people. If you elect me and I go to Delhi, I'll champion you. So this business of writing history, this whole subaltern history, is a history written for oppressed people. So who is oppressed and who is not oppressed and who did the oppression is a very subjective evaluation. So therefore, if I need votes from these 50 million people or some number of people, and I can say that they don't have a voice, I'll be their voice, and I teach them some history which shows that they are the exploited people by others, I may get ahead. So I think that's the nature of the question, and it is really a very serious question, because when you more and more archaeological evidence, more and more scientific evidence is overturning what was considered to be the truth of history. People are discovering older civilizations that ever existed. They are discovering manuscripts which originated in one country, having also migrated to another country. So all kinds of new evidence is coming out that tells us that the history that has been constructed, which is being taught in schools most of the time, is actually not false. It is actually not true, and some of it has actually been manipulated. So the British had a certain history of India, and then Majumdar, after independence, created a very patriotic national history of India. Then the Marxists came and toppled it over and said that we want a subaltern history, because India is a land, traditional classical India was a land of oppressiveness of other people. So now you see the BJP has come and want to take the control of history. So this history has been a political football. It is not a BJP project. It was a project of the Marxists. Before that, it was a project of the British. Before that, after the British left, Nehru actually, Majumdar did probably a very decent job of Indian history without blaming any. There was no blame game. It was a lot of facts in many volumes of the history of India. So I think this is not a trivial question.
Shazia, you were saying.
Yeah, I would like to answer the question on the right to be defended. Yes, we all have a right to be offended, sorry, the right to be offended. But I don't think, if I have a problem watching the film PK, and I have a problem with the way Godmen have been shown, or I have a problem with a certain cartoon and a cartoonist, I can do many things about it, but I don't have to kill, hurt, and incite hatred whatsoever. That should not be tolerated. That should not be part of any religious belief. To be a liberal or to be an extremist, you have a choice. But to kill, dishonor, abuse, and spread venom cannot be condoned by anybody. So you are offended, be offended. See a shrink, see a psychiatrist, seek help, do meditation, make another cartoon, make another film, write another book.
Try getting into Jaipur Literature Festival.
Get into Jaipur Literature Festival.
No, I just wanted
do your
to
own
say...
catharsis, but killing would not be a catharsis or hurting anybody. Sorry, cannot be.
I wanted to respond to the young man as well and just say, you don't like it, man? Close your eyes, shut your ears. Eventually, your mind will close down and then you'll be really happy and you'll be a perfect citizen.
Sit down.
So, yeah.
I want to go to the back and take a couple of questions. Do we have a mic there? The gentleman who's standing, no, further back, further back. Yeah, you standing, yes, please. Yep. Can the mic get there? Anybody on the left-hand side further back? All the way back, love to, but I don't think they'll ever get there in this generation.
I would like to ask a question straightforward to Suleiman Seth, sir. Culture is a very, very big subject. And culture nowadays in the world, lots of politics and countries, governments, impacting lots of culture in the world. American culture is impacting on Indian politics. But I would like to ask you one question. Culture, if you want to know the Indian culture, you have to travel by trains. Nowadays, our politicians travel by aeroplanes. I would like to say one thing. When you said the culture, nowadays in India, politicians all the playing game on the basis of caste, in spite of culture. So let's say lots of politics in India, everybody is playing game on the basis of caste, in spite of culture. What do you say?
Does anyone in the audience have a sorbet trait?
Suhel, one sec. The lady in front, yeah. And then the gentleman in the red, yeah.
A very good evening to the panel.
We can't hear you. Just speak into the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I completely agree with Arshia when she says that it's high time for the authors and writers to completely stop bothering about the sentiments of the people, because any which ways anyone is going to be offended. So my question is that, the fundamental rights, the freedom of speech and expression is subjected to reasonable restrictions. So where do we draw the line today when there's so many extremists and fundamentalism
Thanks.
growing?
So where do you draw the line? The gentleman in the red?
My question to Sajia ma'am. Ma'am, what will you say about Ghar Wapsi or Love Jihad or making Gita compulsory in curriculum and also Sanskrit language making compulsory in the, writing scripts?
Yes, yes,
and you told that you are Muslim, right? So why you wear orange color? You should have wear other color also.
But I
Thanks. So three of those
I
questions.
reserve my right to dress up the way I want.
No, you
I
like.
will not be dictated to, because I will not be dictated to by anybody.
You like orange color? You
asked the question. Thanks. Take the mic back.
You, sir. I don't feel the need to dignify
can I make a
that
point?
question of yours by my
And
answer.
Sanskrit is actually a good thing. It's a great language to learn. It's very close to computer language. I loved it in school.
Also, can I make a point on that?
Yes.
Also, I think on the one hand, we're talking against narrow-mindedness. We're talking about people being stuck on identity politics rather than rising above their identity and basing their decisions on merit. On the other hand, here's a person who decided that, okay, I'm a Muslim, I'm not denying that, but I'm going beyond my identity and making a choice based on principles and merit. Therefore, why is that considered bad? Would you rather have every Muslim in one box and every Hindu in one box and say, okay, why should a Hindu go to Eid and why should a Muslim go and celebrate Diwali? Is that the country you want? I don't think so.
We don't want that kind of a country. We're happy the way we are.
So the gentleman with the stripe, this thing right behind you, and then bring the mic back in front.
हेलो मैं गोरे राज हूँ साजिया मैम से मेरा सवाल है मैम आपने जब आम आदमी पार्टी बनाई
Yeah, we can hear you.
हेलो हाँ तो उसमें ये लॉजिक था कि जो परंपरागत पार्टियां हैं उनमें काफ़ी सारे भ्रष्टाचार हैं आरटीआई में नहीं आते हैं करप्टेड लोगों को टिकट देते हैं इसलिए आपने एक नई पार्टी बनाई लेकिन ऐसा क्या आपने बीजेपी में उस समय आपने बीजेपी की बहुत बुराई की आज उस बीजेपी में 2-4 पॉइंट बताएंगी कि वो बदलाव आ गया जैसे कि पहले वो आरटीआई में पहले एक मिनट कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ मैं 2-3 उदाहरण देता हूं
Just keep it short, please.
जैसे आरटीआई में नहीं आना करप्टेड को टिकट नहीं देना ठीक है ये सब इस तरह के मामले थे तो इनमें क्या सरकार में बदलाव आ गया कि आप चली गई पॉइंट वाइज बता दे तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा हिंदी में
मैं बिल्कुल
थैंक यू
मैं हिंदी में पॉइंट वाइज आपको बताऊंगी कि मैंने आम आदमी पार्टी मैंने क्यों बनाई मैं फाउंडर मेंबर थी और मैं क्यों उस पार्टी को मैंने छोड़ा इन्हीं सब इश्यूज की वजह से जैसे कि एक किताब है ना एनिमल फार्म कि जो कुछ बदलने एनिमल फार्म जैसे जो कुछ बदलने चले थे वो वैसे ही हो गए अपने उसूलों से चले गए और क्योंकि मैंने नरेंद्र मोदी में अब तक देखा है जिस तरह की नई राजनीति हो रही है डेवलपमेंट की राजनीति हो रही है जिस तरह से बदलाव आ रहा है वो बदलाव मैंने इस पार्टी में देखा बनिस्बत उस पार्टी में जो खुद ही बदल गई एक कॉज से एक कल्ट में परिवर्तित हो गई मुझे लगा है एक नई किस्म की राजनीति करने का झूठ मूठ सबको इल्जाम लगाकर नहीं और मैं बता दूं अभी भी 12 टिकट्स ऐसे हैं आम आदमी पार्टी में जो करप्ट लोगों को दिए गए हैं जिसके खिलाफ केस चल रहा है मैं आपको बता दूं उसके बारे में काफ़ी काम हो रहा है तो मैं इस डिबेट को पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में कर सकती हूँ लेकिन क्योंकि कल्चर और पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में आपसे मैं उस पर महदूद रहूंगी
I would request you all to keep your questions to the debate itself, young lady.
I would like to add to what he said about you leaving the Aam Aadmi Party.
Can we keep it to this, to what the debate proposition is, rather than on the culture of Aam Aadmi Party?
No, I think she represents a culture of opportunism, which is why I wanted to ask her.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Can we give it to, this is not a bash Sazia session, so back to the gentleman in.
No, give me a chance to explain that because I'm getting a lot of this. Let me.
Madam, good evening everybody. My name is Kiran Kumar. I'm from South. So I just have a question to the person who joined political party recently. She's saying art is a savior. How it can be a savior? And can we raise the voice, everybody, and can we join? And so the doors of the parliamentary system can close for the uncultured, uncivilized criminals who are entering inside it and who don't have the guts to say and safeguard the authors in South, in Tamil Nadu, what happened, everybody knows. Then we can save the culture because who is civilized, who knows the culture, who knows the arts, he will enter the parliament and he will really save India. We need the parliamentary reform.
Shazia,
We
respond.
need. Excellent. बहुत बढ़िया बोले आप.
Shazia.
Yes, I will answer the lady. If you think I represent a culture of opportunism, then you're most welcome to think so. I was part of Anna Hazare movement. I gave up my job. It was not even to be a party.
No.
I gave up my job to be a part of a team which took on corruption. Actually taking on the might of UPA and other parties. So had I been an opportunist, I would not have joined a movement, I would have joined a party straight away. Two, I've refused a ticket from BJP because I want to work on policy, on gender, on urban development and many issues. And it's my right and a political choice to do what I want to do. I think it is opportunism, in fact, to take nationalism, use it as a tool, to want to be a CM of Delhi only for political expediency, only to fight Vidhan Sabha elections and then Lok Sabha elections, which is what Arvind Kejriwal did, only to become a chief minister. I think that is opportunism. To constantly give up RTI, Swaraj, Jan Lokpal, Anna, Kiran Bedi, IRS, IIT, everything, to be a politician. I think that is opportunism and not the desire to work for your country and contribute.
I'm now going to ask each of you for your closing statements. 2 minutes each, please, starting with Arshia. You want to go?
From here? Can I do it from here? Well, I'm... I think I'll just stay here. What can I say? I'm just a bleeding heart liberal. I want us all to be able to talk to each other. I want us all to listen to each other. I don't want us to use guns. I don't want us to use bombs. I want us to read books freely. And I want to remind us all that if we don't like something, we can close our eyes. We can close our ears. There's no need to try and close another person's eyes or another person's ears. So that's my closing statement.
Yes, I think a new kind of a cultural identity, a new kind of political identity is needed, really, to break stereotypes, to break caricatures. And even regular professionals should be a part of this debate. And I think politics, much as we deride it, vilify it, demonize it, exactly is a place where policy changes happen. So when more and more liberals come into a space where there are extreme voices prevailing in every political setup, I think it can do a lot and contribute to creating a new kind of discourse, and I'm all for it.
Rajiv?
Well, I want to comment that we talked about anger, but I think anger coming out is a reflection of frustration, and so it should come out. And in the old days, you had dictators, you didn't have the media, you didn't have these outlets, the technology wasn't available, so anger didn't come out. It's not like something new has happened. Obviously, if you see the oppression and the conquest and all kinds of things that societies went through, there must have been anger, but there was no outlet. So this outlet, this anger is sort of a barometer of frustration in society, and it's better to let it out than to let it suppress. As far as freedom is concerned, and the right to criticize somebody's religion and make cartoons or PK movies and all that stuff, my feeling is that I do not agree with banning any of that, but I think that there should be an equal opportunity for the other side to represent itself. I do not always see that in the media. I do not always see in the mainstream media that different voices are given an equal chance, and I can go into a whole lot of autobiographical things which I don't want to, where certain voices are systematically suppressed. So the social media is actually a good thing, whatever it may be happening, but the social media is a good thing because it's the only way that the public, young people especially, have to express their views against what they're hearing in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media, somebody controls the mic, controls who gets invited and who won't get invited. In social media, they cannot do that. So I think the voice of the people through social media is a good corrective to the power and hegemony of the mainstream media.
Suhel?
I just have a couple of things. Let's respect our civilization and our glorious past and build on that for the future. This is a country which gave the world Swami Vivekananda. It also gave the world a Tagore, Amartya Sen. We've had people who've risen above partisanship. We've had people who've never discussed caste, creed, color. If you need to discuss it for political reasons, but let culture be sacred. Because if culture is destroyed, if culture is tinkered with, if culture undergoes the blemishes, attempts are being made to make it go under, you won't have the civilization that was special and unique to India. Good. And I think the only thing that can save India is Indians itself. We've got to replace citizenship with a deep sense of nationalism, because patriotism will continue to be the last refuge of the scoundrel. And God bless America.
Thanks, Suhel. And finally, most importantly, each one of us has to continue to fight for our freedom of creative expression. I think it's each and every one of our duty to do that. I'm going to ask for the poll again. The House believes that culture has become the new politics. Those of you who believe in this proposition, raise your hand. I think the House has it. Thank you very much. The debate has been won. Thank you very much, Arshia, Rajiv, Suhel, and Shazia. To all of you, thank you for being here today. May I welcome on stage our co-directors, Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple, my colleague, Shuli Sethi.